Welcome to Love and Guilt in the Anthropocene, a podcast to help people and organizations embrace the adventure of climate action. We are envisioning a world where sustainability comes naturally. Today is a reading from the blog with the episode Having a Child in the Climate Crisis, a personal story filled with triggering content. This is a note to the listener. If you usually listen to this podcast, this particular episode is very personal and it's a little bit longer. I hope you stick around because I think this is one of my more important stories that I want to tell. There's a flutter of people in and out of the glass doors, rolling the curtains back and forth. Hi, I'm your anesthesiologist. Can you tell me if you've taken any blood thinners? Hi, I'm here to place your IV. Here are some meds we need you to take. What's your date of birth? These are the last moments I have with my baby inside of me. It's already dead, but it's still there. If I'm given too long to reflect, I start to cry, so it's better that they need to call in vascular to help place my IVs. This isn't my first time with pregnancy loss. It's my third this year, and my fourth medical procedure to help me resolve the pregnancy loss. My body doesn't give up easily, whether it's blood from my veins or non-living tissues in my uterus. I had 3 pairs of those grippy hospital socks at home. After the last D&C, I decided to rid myself of the bad vibes, so I threw the socks in a bag bound for Goodwill. This act did not change the fate of my pregnancies. So today, I awkwardly stood at the foot of my patient bed, squeezing those socks onto my feet. They are foot agnostic and hard to manage without a proper heel. Perhaps I could use these to make baby shoes during my next pregnancy. Perhaps that is the kind of intention that the universe needs for me to become a mother again. Working in sustainability, I have felt guilty about so many things. Throwing away food, taking a long, hot shower, flying to a new country, not getting rid of the gas line to our house, ordering meat at a restaurant, or buying a plastic water bottle when I desperately needed water. But I don't feel guilty for having my son, and I don't feel guilty for trying to have a second kid. I don't just work in sustainability, I work on healthcare sustainability, so I'm not blind to the irony of my birth and pregnancy stories. I've had such a big carbon footprint for my healthcare needs, and they were needs I walked myself right into by simply deciding to try to have children. I agonized about having a child the first time around. My husband and I endlessly debated. We could financially afford it, but it's a big change and a huge responsibility. So much can go wrong. The what-ifs are endless. They span a whole lifetime. But we are also worried about climate change. We are worried about our own footprint and how that would expand with a child. But more so, we are worried about what our child will have to live through in his lifetime. The future looks pretty bleak. But we decided we wouldn't cave to our darkest fears. We were more curious about the prospect of parenthood than we were fearful, and I knew I would regret not having tried to have children. So we took the plunge, becoming a parent. Our first pregnancy was a breeze, except it started in January 2020 and was a true COVID experience. Our first scan was conducted on the first day of the New York City lockdown, and one day later we fled the city with a note from our OB saying we could cross state lines. 9+ months later, I tested positive for COVID before my induction, and since the country was low on tests, we didn't get to try again. I had to labor in an isolation room and wait while nurses, anesthesiologists, and midwives donned isolation gowns and pappers to get into us. I labored for 68 hours and had an emergency C-section. It was one of the most resource-intensive births I've seen, and I did some research on the carbon footprint of births, short of an ICU stay. We found parenthood to be amazing. It's exhilarating, exhausting, draining, soul-crushing, mind-numbing, awesome, and wonderful. It's all of life's intensity distilled into a tiny human. All those emotions constantly raw before you and within you. It's a love I cannot describe. It's one of the hardest and best things I've ever done in my life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It has improved me as a person and me as a researcher. I suddenly care a whole lot more about climate change if that were possible, and I'm more motivated than ever to do whatever I can to fix this. I also have more hope. Because of my son, the future just seems so much better. Trying again. Now, 4 years later, we want to try for a second kid, and it has not been going well. The doctor says it's a great thing I can get pregnant, but I can't seem to make it past 7 weeks gestation. Each 8-week ultrasound has been unable to find a heartbeat. I've been appalled by the lack of options for women who miscarry. 1 in 4 pregnancies end this way. Over 1 million probably wanted babies are never born in the U.S. each year, and yet the doctors wouldn't do any testing for me until after my second miscarriage. I only have an explanation for the second one because I was old enough for them to do some testing of the fetus, and afterwards they did some blood testing for me as well, but none of that helped prevent the third miscarriage. Climate and inequity are interrelated. Dominant cultures didn't care about women and women's issues the same way they didn't care about the environment. That worked out okay for a lot of human history, but it doesn't work anymore. With all the greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide, we've pumped into our atmosphere, our planet is irreversibly changing. And because of how quickly we've emitted so many GHGs, it will be a violent shift into a new planetary equilibrium. The sad news is we haven't even stopped emitting GHGs to give the planet a chance to recalibrate. My pregnancies and the one time I did give birth have all contributed to those emissions. Every day I live and breathe, eat and drive, shower and work, I contribute to those emissions. So do all the people around me and all the people who lived before me. Finding hope. But life is about more than greenhouse gas emissions. This cold accounting is necessary for finding ways to fix the problem, but taken too far and we forget the purpose of being alive. There is suffering here to be sure, but there is also a lot of joy in the human experience. A large part of that experience is our community. Whether it's family by blood or family by choice, or just really good friends, we are here sharing our joys and sorrows. Humans are also part of this planet, evolving like every other living thing and nurtured by the plants, animals, and minerals living with us and the air that surrounds us. As creatures arguably gifted with forethought, it's time that we use that to recreate systems of reciprocity with nature, giving as much to nature as nature has given us. Before having my first child, I really debated whether I should bring a kid into this world. What future would they have? What horrors would they face? It's true, his future is far from certain, but realistically, there's no certainty in any of our futures, climate change or not. I don't know if I will have a second kid, but it's not the climate crisis that will prevent a second child from walking this planet, breathing this air, and seeing all the beauty and horror of life. Because for me, not having a child was a sacrifice too far in the climate battle. I'll commute by bike as often as I can, and I'll bring reusable shopping bags everywhere. I'll vote, and I'll educate. But my children are my hope and my investment in a livable future. I'll use my tenacity to fight for that livable future, even when it seems hopeless. Thank you for listening. If you want to embrace the adventure of climate action, subscribe to our podcast and check out our Love and Guilt in the Anthropocene blog at clinicallysustainable.substack.com.